is a known fact that Sonic games are fun.
What up, Sonic Squad? Today we're doing some Sonic racing. Ready? Let me show you how it's done.
Although, talking about which Sonic game fits those qualities can be very subjective, especially when you look at the Blue Blur's less successful games throughout his history. Because for better or for worse, most have a soft spot for a few of these games. I myself have a soft spot for what is considered to be Sonic's most infamous game. This game has been beaten over and over for its bad gameplay, terrible story, and overall rushed development. So what on earth possessed me to make such claims? The reason is nostalgia. Well, sorta. Nostalgia did play a factor for me as I decided to replay this almost 20-year-old game over on my Twitch. I gotta say, it's not as bad as many people think. So get comfortable, folks, grab some snacks, and hold off on your comments because I'm going to talk about Sonic 06's development, game, and story, and why it's actually a fun game.
No, I'm cutting off already, no sir! No!
Good old 2006. The 15th anniversary of Sonic the Hedgehog, Sega and Sonic Team wanted to celebrate the Blue Blur's history by creating a next-gen game that would serve as the rebirth for the series. One that would require the team to go back and take elements that were praised from the adventure titles and create the ultimate Sonic experience. In all honesty, if Sonic Team didn't try to go with this whole explanation of a rebirth, I genuinely think this game would have been called Sonic Adventure 3. Unfortunately, despite how ambitious the team was, the development was rushed as Sega wanted this game to be released during Christmas. And if you guys know anything about rushed development on games, you'll know that it goes as well as trying Halo Lasso for the first time. Yeah. Despite the shortcomings, Sonic 06 was released to both the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3 with an overwhelming negative reception to the game. Now, glitches aside, it brings up a genuine question as to what makes Sonic 06's gameplay bad. Terrible even. I don't even know why I'm doing these zoom-ins for. You know, after a couple of hours of playing Sonic 06, it really left me wanting more out of the game as a lot of concepts were scrapped in the final version of the game. One of the most notable examples of this was implementing a day and night cycle. However, for the sake of this video, I will talk more about what's in the final rendition of the game instead of thinking about what could have been. So with that said, level design wise, they're actually pretty fun. I know, crazy statement. You'll go through every level in the game in different points, with some levels having different approaches. Take the level Dusty Desert for example. In Sonic's story, you're only exploring the outsides of the ruins, but in both Shadows and Silver stories, you're taken within the ruins and explore the interior. I like this because it does give actual replayability to each character, as some of the levels aren't the same. This also has to do with the fact that each Hedgehog and their support characters have different gameplay traits. The other aspect of the level design that makes me enjoy Sonic 06's levels are the different approaches you can take. Levels such as Wave Ocean, Kingdom Valley, and Tropical Jungle. It rewards you for taking a risk instead of following the straightforward route. This is something I've enjoyed in previous Sonic games. Whether it's Speed Highway from Adventure 1 or Final Rush in Adventure 2, the possibility of finding a new route to take when playing these levels is the exact reason why the Adventure era is highly replayable. And again, I know it's a crazy thing to say, but it's one of the reasons why I do genuinely enjoy Sonic 06, because it does follow the similar structure that makes Sonic games actually enjoyable. Boss battles, however, are a completely different story if I'm being honest. They're really a hit or a miss. Firstly, the Iblis boss fight are by far the weakest out of all the bosses. For Sonic and Shadow, the Iblis boss fight is painfully slow, having to wait for pillars to come down just to get closer and attack Iblis himself. The Silver boss fight, however, is better as you have means to actually fight back from a distance. If anything, it's in reverse because during the final Iblis boss fight in the game, you have to fight Iblis as fast as you can as Silver, because failing to do so will cause you to automatically lose and restart the entire boss fight. How do I know this? Because I suck at Sonic games and I learned that the hard way. Now moving on from Iblis, the Egg Cerberus boss fights were just alright. There's nothing really notable to talk about. However, the one boss fights that I did genuinely enjoy were the Egg Genesis boss fights, because one thing I noticed is how at the end of the fight, they do a last-ditch effort attack to defeat you. Seriously, those chunky square boss just dive bomb you. Like, what?
Hey bro, watch your jet. Watch your jet, bro. Watch your jet!
Similarly, final boss for Sonic's story, the Egg Wyvern, has a similar approach as well, where at the end, after learning Eggman's 2 phase attacks, you're left with only one platform to stand on, where Eggman himself will dive bomb at you to catch you off guard, making this last segment of the boss fight intense if you happen to mess up the jump. While they are the same, I do enjoy fighting Sonic, Shadow, and Silver depending on which story I am playing. The only thing I can really criticize is how easy these fights are, especially if you're Silver, because all you have to do is grab objects and Hail Mary everything until you win. With that said, fighting Silver isn't bad, but good God is it programmed terribly, because if you get caught by him and sent upwards to the air, you can just consider the fight done, because he'll just spam attack you until you're cooked, or you get soft locked, forcing you to restart the fight. It's a shame because I feel like this could have been executed better because Sonic Adventure and Adventure 2 also had character boss fights, and while I still feel those were a bit jank, they were incredibly better than what was here in Sonic 06. But like I said, most of these bosses are hit or miss. Luckily, I found them better than terrible because these boss fights are genuinely unique in their own respective way. Except the Iblis boss fights, you know what, those can go fuck. That said, I did save my favorite boss for last, because this one by far is one of the most unique boss fights in all of Sonic 06, that boss fight being Mephiles. I absolutely love how you can't inflict damage until you have your Chaos Blast meter fully charged as Shadow, leaving Mephiles exposed to being damaged. What's also cool is that you end up switching to Omega during the final boss fight after beating him once as Shadow. This by far is one of the most unique boss battles I've ever seen, and on a side note, I'm glad that Shadow Generations remade this boss fight, as you can now properly use Shadow's Chaos abilities as well. Speaking of Shadow's Chaos abilities, each character you play as in Sonic 06 are unique for the most part. Some I think are developed as well as it can get in terms of the quality that the games offer, while others are just so terrible that it really makes me wonder if they were even necessary to be a part of this game at all.
You think you can intimidate me with just your size? Come on, let's see what you can do.
Ah, good old Sonic, the one hedgehog whose face is plastered on the cover. Just like the other Adventure era games, Sonic's gameplay I'd say is probably the best one in terms of gameplay. You run fast, attack enemies, and reach the end. Straightforward and nothing crazy. However, the problem I have with Sonic is how painfully slow he is in this game. The same goes for the rest of the cast, but goodness, what did they do to my boy? Although, I will say that one of the positives of the gameplay is the controls when platforming. One of the biggest gripes I've had with some of the Sonic games, specifically Heroes and Shadow 05, was how slippery the characters got. Here, it is very sharp, making your actions accurate. However, there's also a problem with this because the momentum is just not there. Feels like these characters have no physics at all, and it takes away what makes Sonic fun in level designs. The best showcase of this is when you're playing Sonic and doing any of the snowboarding segments. What I thought was a fun concept to use in the previous adventure games is now a clunky mess, where even timing jumps properly can have little to no momentum when ramping. It really feels like the game wants to decide for itself when Sonic can actually have a long jump in these segments.
Man, here we go.
His spin dash is back, like in the adventure games, but it is terribly designed that you can't go anywhere with it. Home and attack is a similar issue as well, as now you have to actually aim where Sonic is going to home and attack, or else he'll just lunge forward in whatever direction he is currently looking at. Now yes, it is a skill gap that anyone can overcome, but this is just plain bad design because when you compare it to previous games, the mechanics were already solidified, so why change it up in the first place? Now maybe I'm just gaslighting myself, but I could have sworn the E3 demo of Sonic 06 actually had this perfected. Despite these shortcomings, there are some aspects that I do enjoy when it comes to each hedgehog. For Sonic, he gets gems that can change the gameplay. Sonic is the only one who has the most upgrades because of these gems, so I'll just speedrun through them real quick. Blue gem basically acts like a speed boost to let the boy run like he's always meant to run. Red gem slows down time and actually allows you to gain S ranks in the most busted way possible. The green gem is basically breakdancing Sonic. Purple gem makes Sonic small and allows him to do infinite jumps, the best gem in my opinion. The sky gem just basically allows Sonic to obtain godhood and lets him go into the air if you can shoot the gem properly. The white gem just makes Sonic stop in midair to do some home and attack. The yellow gem is one of the weird ones because it basically collects rings and protects you from bots. There's also a Rainbow Gem too that just lets you turn into Super Sonic, but it wasn't programmed correctly in the final version of the game, so it's just Sonic basically aura farming. But the issue is within the coding itself. This had to have been a big oversight when it comes to creating the gems for Sonic, as he has a meter that should limit his gem usage, but it doesn't, making it possible to abuse these gems as much as you want, which is cool for players, I guess. But it is a big oversight that once again shows the rushed development of this game. And even with all these problems, Sonic is still my favorite to play, and if anything, it's mainly because of how straightforward his levels are. Where Shadow has his vehicle segments, Silver and his telekinetic puzzle designs, Sonic has what he is known for. As certain segments, depending on the level itself, Sonic will decide to chug a Red Bull and actually go fast like he's supposed to. While these segments sound cool in concept, the problem arises within the controls. You see, when Sonic jumps, he can't move in any direction but forward, so if you aren't positioned properly, then it's game over. And the same goes when Sonic is collecting rings in these segments. If something hits Sonic's hitbox, Sonic will spaz out, and mix that with the cameras that fight you when running, and you have this section that is for better or for worse, frustrating. Crisis City is the best example of this, as there are sections when the camera changes, making the controllers to switch up on you. But with that said, I won't deny it when I say that I do enjoy these segments a lot. Don't get me wrong, I like a functional game. But having to play with what is given, I set myself a challenge to master these levels, and to my surprise, I've come to enjoy these mock speed segments a lot, as they test your reflex and knowledge of the level segments in order to get to the end. It genuinely feels rewarding to make it through a mock speed section without colliding with an object of sorts. I mean, Jesus, look at this guy, oh my god! Overall, there are some aspects of Sonic's gameplay that I can live without. This also has to do with the fact that I love Sonic's campaign and gameplay the most when it comes to comparing the three Hedgehogs. Which leads us to the next Hedgehog that I do enjoy playing as.
No matter how many of you come, it's a waste of time.
Now I'll be honest and say that my main nostalgia only comes from Sonic's campaign. But I can't deny that after replaying the entirety of this whole game, I found myself enjoying Silver's campaign. Where Sonic and Shadow have similar gameplay styles, Silver is a nice change of pace where you use his telekinesis to fight against enemies and bosses. It's just a shame that he is painfully slow. Jeez man, I think my grandma can beat this level faster than him.
You're too slow! No!
Thankfully, he is not as slow as some of the support characters in this game, but man, Sega did not cook, which makes no sense at all because in the opening cutscene for Silver, you'll literally see bro zooming without issue in this game. Yet, when you actually get to play as Silver, all he does is T-pose with a short distance. Sure, you can get one of his upgrades to do a dash, but like come on Sega, don't do my boy so foul like that. Despite his pitiful flying abilities, you can literally grab a majority of objects around you and attack enemies with them. Not only that, but you can even use the enemies themselves to be thrown as objects. It's easy to pull this off when you unlock some upgrades, but before that, you are only able to do so by getting close to these enemies and pimp slapping them. I have to say, is the funniest thing to do in this game, because you just run up to them and give them a good old backhand. Might as well give Silver the wife beater and call him the solution because he somehow bounces on these bosses crazy style. One other aspect of Silver's campaign that I really do enjoy are the layouts, because it requires the use of Silver's abilities to pass through certain sections of the level. Some require you to bring down structures, move up through sections with objects, and even send yourself flying to the next point of the level. Majority of Silver's levels are puzzle focused, which for the most part are pretty cool, except when you get to Dusty Desert. There's a puzzle that requires you to guide a ball to the end of a hallway, but you are given a certain amount of hits to push the ball to the end before it just explodes. This level has to be one of the most infamous levels in Silver's campaign, which is why instead of doing the puzzle properly, I like to get a crate and cheese my way through the level because I'll be damned to properly play this segment at all. Ultimately, playing Silver's campaign is a nice change of pace because his levels do work well around him and his telekinetic abilities. Well, most of them. Now speaking of change of pace, we come to the last Hedgehog in this game.
Whatever you try, it's useless.
Now technically when you're playing these stories, Shadow does come second, campaign-wise, but for the sake of this video, I decided to talk about him last, because in my own opinion, his campaign is my least favorite. Story-wise, it's not terrible, but I will save that for later. Right now, I am talking about Shadow's gameplay. Shadow is essentially Sonic, but with combat variations to his set. Instead of having a simple home and attack, which is still there, he instead gets a 5 combo variation if you hold the home and attack button longer. Lightspeed Dash is there as well, and is probably the only ability that isn't different from Sonic's. But this is where the similarities end. The gameplay aspect that makes Shadow unique are his chaos abilities and vehicle segments. Just like Sonic and Silver getting upgrades, so does Shadow. Shadow gets a chaos spear that stuns enemies and keeps Shadow levitating in the air if you hold the button for a long period of time. Additionally, his blast can deal damage if you manage to fill Shadow's gauge and activate his chaos boost, which amplifies all of Shadow's abilities to an extent. And just as a quick side comment, this Chaos Blast, it actually sucks. The main reason is that it says in the manual that it can wipe out everything within 10 yards. But as you can see, you have to be right next to an enemy for it to even work at all. So, yeah, not that fun. And aside from an upgrade to his spears, his homing attacks become deadlier as he is able to homing attack from one enemy to another in a split second. Conceptually, it's a pretty cool ability, but the problem lies is that his chain goes way too fast and I get disoriented. Not only that, but I'll sometimes homing attack an enemy or an object that I didn't want to attack. And it's weird because a lot of mechanics in this game aren't bad. But again, due to rush development, they were implemented incorrectly. And it's frustrating because a few small tweaks and these mechanics could have been pretty solid. Except for Chaos Blast, good lord, that ability can go fuck. This is half of the reason why I find Shadow to be my least favorite character from this game. Shadow just doesn't add any incentive to use his abilities at all, and he feels more like a Temu Sonic, and it feels pretty terrible to say that. Some would say he's not even good enough to be Sonic's fake.
Oh, bro.
Boo me all you want, I speak facts. Now, if you paid attention to what I said earlier, I said that that was only half a reason. The other half is in his vehicle segments. I hate them. Frankly, it's because of how inconsistent they are. Arctic Base and Dusty Desert are the best examples of this. In Arctic Base, you are given a Warthog from Halo and are required to destroy lights to progress through the level, whereas in Dusty Desert, you need to use this ski jet sort of thing to maneuver through the desert in order to progress through the level. The difference with these two vehicle segments is how one gives you the option to use the vehicle, while the other makes it mandatory for a segment. I don't know why these segments are inconsistent, but they just aren't fun overall. Whether it's using a glider to be used as a rail shooter or the ski jet to traverse through Kingdom Valley, they just aren't entertaining. And speaking of Kingdom Valley, when you play this level as Shadow, I personally think it's the worst one out of the three. And it's due to the issue of having to fight with your camera. You see, there are these pillars that you have to maneuver through that can fall and crush you. Thankfully, they aren't hard to avoid once you know the layout of that segment. But man, do they suck. It's a shame really, because I feel like this was unnecessary as Sonic Adventure 2 got this right with Shadow. Either way, from what we have here, Shadow is my least favorite Hedgehog to play, and he isn't the only character I don't like playing either. Aside from the main Hedgehogs, you have support characters that you can play as throughout the campaign. Sonic's story, you can play as Tails and Knuckles. In Shadows, there's Rouge and Omega. And in Silver's campaign, there's Blaze and Amy. I'll preface this right now, Blaze is the only one that's actually fun to play as. She is really fast compared to the other support characters because they are all painfully slow. Like, bro, move! Tails unfortunately has the worst of it. Instead of using the tornado or having the same abilities from Sonic Adventure, he has a ring bomb to fight against enemies. At that point, it's just better to run away because those ring bombs aren't too useful unless you get right up on the enemy's face and aim properly. Same thing with goes with Rouge. I don't know why they would give her bombs. I guess she forgot her kung fu for some reason, which very odd, but whatever I guess. Thankfully, she gets a better flying ability compared to Tails. Knuckles can still box, so that's not too terrible, though I will say when it comes to Knuckles' climbing, it is pretty buggy. Moving along, we have Omega, and he has a cannon that I think only works when you're in the air, but hey, at least he has boosters to fly and assert his dominance. I won't even complain because if a robot just came at me T-posing, I'd be afraid. I'd be shivering in my timbers. Now Amy, good lord, what did they do to you? You see, she was already terribly slow in Adventure 1, but at least her gameplay was somewhat enjoyable. Here, they made a worse version of that. You see, she gets a double jump that stops all momentum, and her hammer attack is awful because you have to get up close to enemies' faces and inflict damage. I don't know why, but I seem like I can't ever land a hit, and that overall is pretty damn frustrating. Thankfully, you don't have to play as her a lot, except for that one side mission where you have to guide the princess from all these enemies. And let me tell you, I think I've died in that segment more than any other segment in this game overall. Now, if I had to rank all of them, it would be like this, where Amy is at the bottom and Blaze is at the top. Now, speaking about Blaze, she is the only supporting character that I love because she is just like Sonic, but better. A double jump that actually actually is functional and a homing attack that I think far surpasses both Sonic and Shadow. Seeing how Blaze is one of the best support characters in this game, it really makes me question as to what was the priority when creating this game overall. Regardless, the side characters aren't that great, and it's a saving grace that you don't play as them often. Despite all the negativity that I'm spewing about this game, I still find it enjoyable at the end of the day. You see, the level designs themselves aren't bad, and I really enjoy the locations here that the game offers. If anything, they're recognizable, and I can easily remember these levels more than anything that would have come out of Sonic Forces. That's right, Sonic Forces slander in the Big 2-5. Let's go, baby! The game's music has got to be some of the best music I've listened in the entirety of Sonic's series. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying the other soundtracks are bad, but these just slap more for me, and I personally would listen to these more over any of the other game soundtracks any day. I mean, Dreams of an Absolution is in this soundtrack. Do I need to say more? I didn't touch on it until now because I had no real way to talk about it, but the hub worlds in this game, they're not that stellar, but it adds a familiar face from Adventure 1 into the game. And while some may find this statement to be terrible, I did enjoy the side quests that each hub world offered, especially the Sonic Man level. If I had to say anything, that's an S tier quest right there. Alright, time to put that man on fraud watch. Oh yeah, gotta go fast. Oh god, Sonic, look! Hey, what is up guys? It's me, Biko from the future, who is currently editing all of this as we speak. I just wanted to quickly add that Sonic 06 has a multiplayer function. It's just that I didn't have a secondary controller to use it until now, actually. And to my surprise, the multiplayer isn't that terrible at all, if I'm being honest. There's only 2 modes in the final version of the game, tag mode and battle mode. Battle mode is just like Sonic Adventure 2 Battle, where you and another player race against each other to see who can reach the end of a level first. I will say that if you're using Sonic or Shadow, it's pretty cool, but if you end up using Silver, it's a really big hit or miss. It's either going to be a miserable experience or a fun experience for either player, because if you get hit by Silver's telekinesis, well, you're just stuck there until the other player decides to let go, or you're stuck as Silver running. But like I said earlier, he can't run compared to Sonic and Shadow. Though tag mode is a way better mode in my opinion, because you and another player can just basically work together to reach the end of the zone and collect Chaos Emeralds. And in this mode, you can just use Sonic, Silver, or Shadow. It doesn't really matter. Same thing with battle mode. So it's pretty limited if I say so myself. And as a quick fun fact, some of the scrap content for the multiplayer segment of Sonic 06 actually was having Sonic and Shadow work together to catch these Chaos Emeralds together and stop Eggman from getting them. It's really interesting because there are some unused dialogues from all 3 of these characters, and it makes me really wish that this game wasn't rushed at all.
Shadow, we're in this one together. So, I'm stuck working with you. Don't slow me down, Sonic.
The Chaos Emeralds are mine. I'll defeat you 2 together.
Furthermore, there's even scrapped content for battle mode where it seems like at some point the multiplayer would have been up to 4 people. Now, being the goofball that I am, I can't really find any of this scrapped content except on YouTube. So with that said, the footage that you're seeing now is from other YouTubers that have actually recorded any of this scrapped content that is available. So shout out to the 2 YouTubers that I found this footage from, Otter with a Controller and Frail. I'm really glad I was able to find all the scrapped audio and even the 4-player multiplayer mode that could have been. So with that said, that's pretty much all there is to it, to the multiplayer of Sonic 06. There's not much to talk about, but it's still worth to add in here. I just didn't really have a secondary controller to showcase the footage. Well, thankfully I did now. And with that said, we're going to move on to the final segment of this video. Now, originally, I was going to type out the entire story of Sonic 06 and just try to make it very professional in some sense, talking about each campaign. But then I realized if I were to do that, this video would be way longer than it needs to. So I asked ChatGPT to summarize it in Gen Z terms, because as a Gen Zer myself, I'm slowly losing grip of what's hip. So here we go, crew. Sonic pulls up to the Final Fantasy Oz city called Soliana to hit the gritty at some princess's festival. This princess here is named Elise, and Elise is giving Trauma Girl energy because she's got some fire demon inside her called Iblis. Or as everyone likes to call it, the Flames of Disaster! Now while that's happening, Shadow is on his government face because he really meant it when he said that he was leaving the past behind from Shadow 05. And at the same time, we get introduced to a great value Trunks called Silver, who is trying to pull up with his shiesty and catch Sonic lacking because bro got gaslit into thinking that the GOAT himself is the villain. Spoilers, he's not. Meanwhile, Dr. Eggman is being the usual NPC villain, trying to take over the world by figuring out how to take the flames of disaster from Elise. But he somehow gets less screen time than the actual op of this story, a demonic time god named Mephiles, who looks like Shadow but acts like my ex and gaslights Silver into this convoluted plot. Things get extra goofy from here on out. A lot of time travel happens and it makes no sense at times. Sonic literally dies, and then the world literally ends because Mephiles merges with Iblis to become Solaris, a god of time and destruction, which leads to everyone else in the game to pull up to save Sonic, except Blaze, because she's dead or something.
Scotty, beam me up.
All this leads into Elise kissing Sonic back to life. Yes, a human girl kissing a dead blue hedgehog. What, has she never heard of the revive station before? This somehow makes Sonic super, and so he, Breaking Benjamin, and Trunks go run the ones with God. And thus, after beating Solaris, Elise and Sonic decide to reset the timeline so none of it ever happened. And so just to recap one more time, folks, Sonic the Hedge dies, gets kissed back to life, fights God, and then undoes the entire game's plot so no one ever remembers it. 10 out of 10 plot if you ask me. But with that said, guys, it's no surprise that this story is bad, because aside from the summarized explanation, there are many issues to this plot. Mephiles having Silver go clap Sonic is a great example, because he sends Bro to do this only for Mephiles himself to end up clapping Sonic. Not only that, but why on earth couldn't the writers give Elise a better role? Because she literally gets kidnapped every 5 seconds in this story, and the one time she has any redeeming quality in her character, she just goes back to Eggman. Like, is that the best she's good for? Now forget all of that though, because the biggest issue within this story is the inconsistency of this one scene in Shadow and Silver's story, with one having Silver jump through the portal right away, and the other having him stay back to give Elise the Chaos Emerald she had in the beginning of the story. This itself leads into bigger problems of time travel, because assuming she had this emerald since she was a kid, how did she even get it back when Sonic had gone super in previous adventures? I know it's looking into this game too deeply, but it just shows how flawed time travel is in this game. And I will say, I do have smaller nitpicks, but I'm just beating a dead horse explaining why this plot is booty juice. So instead, I'm actually going to tell you what I do enjoy from this plot, because despite being bad, it had some solid moments that I can't deny are gas. The rendered CGI cutscenes are just amazing to view, especially considering that this was a product from 2006. And while I do love the current casting for Sonic and Friends, I will always have a special place for the Sonic X cast. And let's not deny, the shadow kick will always be satisfying. Now, even though this game was rushed, there are clear signs that there was passion put into this game. We have this wonderful moment of the 3 main characters lock in and fight Solaris, where you have to learn his attack patterns in the first phase. But as soon as phase 2 starts, the hardest soundtrack drops and it just elevates the experience of the final boss. And to top it all off, that hearing the lines from Sonic, Shadow, and Silver are just undeniably amazing.
I'll release you from the chains of your past.
I will protect the future, the present day, the here and now that you've stolen. Time to take it back.
And these moments alone just show how much love and vision the developers had, but were faced with the unfortunate circumstances of a reduced team and time crunch. And one other thing that I absolutely enjoyed about the Solaris boss fight, gameplay aside, was just how the 3 hedgehogs represent a key point in time throughout the story of Sonic 06. Shadow fighting Solaris in the past really is a big representation of Shadow's character, as how he himself during Sonic Adventure 2 was weighed down by his past, but came out as a better hedgehog once he was able to let go of it, like we saw in Shadow 05. Silver fighting Solaris makes sense, as his whole story revolves around saving his future. And finally Sonic, being the carefree hedgehog that fights Solaris in the present time. What always attracted me to Sonic was just how carefree he was, and always enjoying the adventures he is in, living in the now instead of worrying about the future or thinking about the past. And it's very evident of this, especially in his story during Sonic 06, as he tells Elise, if you have time to worry, then run. While yes, it is messy and has that one scene that everyone knows the game for, I can't help but find a sense of enjoyment from this messy plot itself. You see, each hedgehog had a character arc that reflects one of the key themes of this game, heroism. Yes, they're heroes, they save the day, but I can't help but enjoy how each hedgehog had to portray this in their own story. Silver, learning to cast aside his revenge and actually see what it takes to become a hero, albeit he did get his moment stolen from Blaze at the end of his campaign. Shadow, figuring out who he will now be after learning that the world will turn on him in the future, which, despite how you feel about the game, this has to be one of the greatest cutscenes to ever come out from anything in the Sonic series.
It's futile. The world will betray you. Why fight at all? Why risk your life for those who will persecute you later?
If the world chooses to become my enemy, I will fight like I always have.
And then there's the Blue Blur himself, remaining as the selfless hero who will always rise to the challenge despite how grim the situation gets. One of the biggest reasons why a lot of us are drawn to Sonic and his crazy world. Not only that, but as much as I hate how this game basically hits a reset button at the end, I did enjoy the scenes for the last act of the story, showcasing Solaris in the past, leading into Sonic and Elise seeing Solaris at the current moment, which leads to this emotional scene that displays the necessary sacrifice one has to make in order to ensure a better future for the world, which all builds up to this melancholy conclusion for Sonic and Elise and everyone else as they now move forward without their memories of this game. To end this video, Sonic 06 is one of those games that I just have a soft spot for, because despite how terrible it is at times, there are some aspects of this game that I actually do find enjoyable. I'm not saying it's a great game, but it's a fun game to me. But what I do know for sure is that you can like whatever Sonic game you want. Don't let some person on Twitter or on the YouTube comments tell you otherwise, because as long as you enjoy the experience you've had playing these Sonic games, then that's good enough. And with that said, folks, I'm done. So thank you guys for watching. I'm genuinely sorry for not making any videos lately. I'm going to be real with you guys. I just recently graduated college and I am so glad to be done. But unfortunately, I had massive burnout. Thankfully though, I'm now out of that burnout phase and I'm ready to make more content again. So stay tuned, folks. Big videos will be coming out soon. But until then, I will catch you guys on the next one.